All right, it's all yours. Let's give her our attention.
How World War II affected today's cryptography. Hi, I'm Lisa Payne, and this is pct130. Standard disclaimer, since this report is more of a timeline, I will mention some various formulas and algorithms at which I do not go into great detail of for the sake of brevity. All right. In its most basic form, cryptography is the science of writing in secret code. It's been practiced for almost as long as civilization and writing have existed. Some of the earliest known ciphers come from around 1900 BC within ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. So, they found evidence of coded hieroglyphs where somebody would use non-standard images that did not fit the normal language. So there was some evidence of intended code there. Up until quite recently, coded messages were mostly used for government and military purposes. The noted professor at MIT, cryptographer Ron Rivest, and co-inventor of the modern RSA algorithm, has famously said cryptography is about communication in the presence of adversaries. The advent of complex mechanical and eventually computerized communications opened the field to more widespread use, and today cryptography is found nearly everywhere for basic information security. Banking protection, computer account passwords, e-commerce, email accounts, even social sites are all everyday applications protected with cryptography. Now, the 5 core functions of cryptography are confidentiality, or no one can read the message except the intended receiver; authentication, proving one's identity; integrity, assurance that the received message has not been altered in any way from the original; and the fancy word non-repudiation, simply meaning proving that yes, you really did send the message and intended to do it; and key exchange, or how keys are shared between the sender and the receiver. The obverse of cryptography, of course, is cryptanalysis, more commonly called code breaking. For every cipher and algorithm created, there is someone who wants to crack it. For centuries, the Arab discovery of word frequency analysis around 1000 AD was one of the most effective methods of breaking codes. Since the written language will use certain words more frequently than others, matching a classical code using substitution can be done easily by an educated attacker. In fact, today some of the most popular ciphers of ancient times, substitution and transposition, still exist in puzzles that you find every day in newspapers, cryptograms. It wasn't until the 19th century that cryptography became more complex. It was finally realized that simply hiding words via code was insecure. Thus began Kirchhoff's principle. A crypto system should be secure even if everything about the system, except the key, is public knowledge. This was in 1883. Later, it was phrased a bit more bluntly by Claude Shannon in Shannon's maxim, "The enemy knows the system." In the early 20th century, physical devices became common aids in both coding and deciphering. The most famous of these being the rotor machines, such as the German Enigma in World War II. Invented by Arthur Scherbius in 1918, just as World War I was ending, the Enigma went through several years of alterations and improvements and was officially released in 1923. Now, there were several variants, including machines used by the Japanese and Italians, but the basis of all of them was a complex electromechanical polyalphabetic system. This means 2 to 8 rotating discs called rotors were arranged along a spindle, and various mechanical stepping components turned at least one rotor with each key press. Now, by itself, a rotor performs only a simple substitution cipher. Enigma's security came from using several rotors in series, plus the regular stepping movement of the rotors, thus implementing a polyalphabetic substitution using more than one alphabet. At the bottom here, I have a very cute Enigma simulator program that even has a graphical interface that will be shown again at the end of the display if that's something you're interested in finding out about. It's a lot of fun to play with. All right, breaking the Enigma. As more and more records regarding the efforts of Allied forces to break German and later Japan's encrypted messages, a little-known Polish mathematician and cryptologist by the name of Marian Rejewski comes to light. Using only theoretical mathematics, he broke the early Army Enigma codes in 1932. Now, this hushed event was the greatest breakthrough of cryptanalysis in 1,000 years. But we don't hear about it because the records were sealed until just recently. The Polish were able to decipher intercepted transmissions up until 1939, when they no longer had sufficient resources to break complex codes. With the advent of war, the German ciphers went from changing about once a month, the frequency the Polish were used to breaking, to changing at least once a day, which gives 159 million possible settings to choose from. Now that summer, the Polish Bureau Cifro sent their knowledge and sample machinery to the British and French to escape the Blitzkrieg. After the invasion of Poland, Rejewski and his fellow codebreakers as well escaped to join the early Allies. Now in Great Britain's Bletchley Park, Alan Turing, Gordon Welchman, Max Newman, and other members of MI6 and what was called the GC and GNCS, or Government Code and Cipher School, gathered to begin what today still stands as the world's greatest concerted effort at code breaking ever attempted. Turing and Welchman designed and built a large, several rooms large, device called BOMB to run through all the possible Enigma wheel configurations and reduce those variants to a manageable number further tested by hand. This mechanical assistance was invaluable in saving thousands of man-hours of tedious computations. In addition to the Enigma codes used for high-level transmissions, the Germans also had a number of other encrypted networks, which were referred to as fish ciphers. This is where Max Newman comes in. He and his colleagues created the world's first programmable digital electronic computer, dubbed Colossus, to assist with those computations. Winston Churchill wisely saw the importance of Bletchley Park's efforts and gave them, quote, extreme priority in allocating resources. Now, we know today, of course, of the success in breaking German ciphers, including the various Enigma codes, and of the United States following success in breaking Japan's purple machines. The American cryptographers William Friedman, who started the project off early but had a mental breakdown, and colleagues took over until Lieutenant Francis A. Raven completed breaking the code and deciphering transmissions of the Japanese improvement on the Enigma, which they named Purple. The Purple cipher was even more complicated than the Enigma, one of the most complex methods of its time, and it kept top-secret Japanese messages secret for almost 2 years during World War II. Even though famously messages regarding the attack on Pearl Harbor were intercepted through Purple, the importance of those messages was unfortunately not realized until it was far too late. Now, the breaking of the Enigma cipher at the Bureau Cifro, the subsequent large-scale decryption of Enigma traffic at Bletchley Park, and defeating Purple were important factors in the Allied victory in World War II. But advances did not stop Japan's surrender. Known as the father of information theory, modern cryptography is often recognized with Claude Shannon, a pioneer of mathematical cryptography. In 1949, his paper, Communication Theory of Secrecy Systems, and later his book Mathematical Theory of Communication, became a recognized theoretical base for cryptography and cryptanalysis as we know it today. However, since cryptography was still controlled by government operations, much of his and later scientists' actual efforts outside of publications remained secret. It was not until the mid-1970s that codes and ciphers became relevant to the public. The 1975 data encryption standards submitted by IBM attempted to encourage secure electronic communication for financial institutions. Modified and approved by the NSA, it still stands today as FIPS 463. This was the first public cipher, and it brought new interest in cryptography. For the first time, civilians have access to cryptography not immediately breakable by government agencies, which, as you can imagine, has caused a lot of issues. The introduction of asymmetric key cryptography, Diffie-Hellman key exchange, and the RSA public-private key algorithms all coincided about 1976. Because these new ideas had been developed outside the government aegis and around the world, their publication extended beyond military monopoly. This created quite a bit of conflict and controversy, and this uneasy status continues to this day, with multiple governments placing heavy legal restrictions on, or outright banning, the use of certain methods such as hashing on imported or exported products. The U.S. Department of Commerce Bureau of Industry and Security maintains an encryption FAQ webpage listed here for further reading and websites. Oops. With more information about the current state of encryption registration. And here I will enlarge this a bit for anybody who is interested. The first two links are simply history. The GaryKessler.net library is kind of a history of cryptography in general. Crypto Museum is a fascinating website that really goes into Enigma, its creation, all of its variants. And there's a simulator program, as I mentioned earlier. And as I just mentioned, the Department of Commerce Bureau of Industry and Security website, if anybody really wants to look it up, is given right here. So the outbreak of World War II spurred a number of inventions that have made lasting changes to our world today. It is entirely likely that without the urgency of hiding messages and the equal need to decipher them, that we might still be working in the clear or with very simple ciphers. Whether or not that would affect personal security cannot be reliably ascertained, but without a doubt our technology as a whole would be different. And that concludes my presentation.
Let's give her a hand. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, one question.
Sure.
Good, great job. Now, I know you and I have talked about this throughout the semester, but what videos or documentaries do you recommend to learn more about cryptography or the people in the field of cryptography?
Gosh, I haven't really looked a whole lot at documentaries, but there was a really good movie, and unfortunately the name escapes me at the moment. It was about Alan Turing and his work at Bletchley Park. It kind of goes a little bit more into his personal life. The Imitation Game, that's it, yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
That was a very recent movie that is probably one of the best ones I've seen. Most of the information that I know was from reenacting. So it's not a movie or a presentation, but I know Rockford has its Midway Village World War II days. And I used to be in a unit that served as its communication group. As far as I'm aware, they're still there. People there are very knowledgeable. They have reproduction enigmas that you can play with. And that's actually a really great resource where you can ask in person.
And the Imitation Game, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't about breaking the code?
No, it was more about Turing's life.
Just Turing's life?
Yeah, and he was a cryptographer that broke many codes. Another one of his famous inventions was called the sturgeon, hence the fish codes of World War II, sturgeon, all their codes and how they worked. But
and he wasn't recognized till late, pretty
No,
late.
he was, at the time, he was openly gay, and at the time that was considered a crime.
Yeah.
So he was kind of kept hush-hush by the government and eventually forced to take drugs as a form of conversion therapy and sadly ended up killing himself before any of his contributions were recognized.
Award, correct? He got a posthumous award for?
Yes, in fact, just a few years ago from, I believe, an award and a posthumous knighthood from the Queen.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Well, good job, good presentation. I did want to mention, not this Thursday, but next Thursday for everybody. I'm going to buy pizza for the last presentation. So let's go ahead and hash out who wants to bring other stuff. That would be great while we're here. So I'm going to bring pizza. I usually buy like a pepperoni and a cheese, which is pretty safe. Who wants to bring napkins and plates?
I can.
You got it. All right, good. How about dessert? Anybody dessert person, or like vegetable plate? You got to have a healthy
I'll
choice
do
somewhere.
vegetable plate.
Vegetable plate. There you
Yes.
go. Chips. Anybody want to bring chips? There you go. Easy bag of chips, right? I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, water. Am I bring water? Cool, water. And then let's see what else we have left. If you want to bring anything else, it's fine. Dessert or whatever else you want to bring, that'd be great. So that's the last class Thursday when we come. During that, those presentations, we'll have a little party there, ending the class and ending the semester. So yeah.
I was going to say, will you bring it up again on Tuesday so I don't forget?
Yes, I will definitely bring it. I just want to give you heads up, because if I don't bring it, give it heads up, you know, just kind of, everybody kind of knows what you're going to bring. Otherwise you'll forget if you're like me. So, but great job. And then, I want to make mention, who's presenting Thursday this year? Anybody presenting Thursday this year in the classroom? Because I have one person that is not here that's supposed to be presenting Thursday. And so, no? All right. Well, I'm going to send an email to those that aren't here. Cindy's under the weather. He's supposed to present. He's at another location, but we can do his remotely. Worst case scenario, I might have his ready to present Thursday. It's just a video he did. I might have you show you guys that, and we'll watch that together. So make sure you've submitted your survey before you leave. There's no lab to submit tonight, and so we are done. Great job. Yeah. And so you get to enjoy the night. And so if you have any questions about anything, come up and see me. Otherwise, see everybody Thursday.